So Tillman just made a beautiful, spontaneous summary of the videos yesterday, and was describing this key experience of change, which we tend to avoid or reinterpret as good as we can in order to feel safe. Yeah. So he was just explaining this process, for example, of seeming arising of an experience, for example, of a thought in the mind, a seeming arising, a seeming dwelling, a staying, a duration of this experience, time spent there, and then this thought would disappear, dissolve, go away, and be followed by another one. So this perception of, you can say, very one after the other between the arising, the dwelling, and the ceasing or the passing is actually an illusion. This is actually the very fabric of illusion. And we live constantly within that illusion, which is based, you can say, on a gross observation. Our observation is not fine enough. Our senses are not sharp enough, and our mind is not looking close enough, usually, to perceive this, that the ceasing is already in the arising. There is no such a thing as clear units of events which are separated from one another, which are independent. So the whole process, you can say, of the spiritual path, the whole path is about coming to terms with this change as it is, to rediscover, you can say, in a much finer way, this process of change. And for that, of course, we sharpen our perception, we take a comfortable posture conducive to the flow of energy, harmonious flow of energy. We are using different methods to let the mind settle and then to look at what is arising. So we are creating all kind of situations, favorable situations, to observe more finely this process of change. And then at the same time, we also turn our attention towards all of our strategies, all of our attempts to deny the change, to, you can say, create a feeling of stability, of security. You can say, basically, to say it in a very general way, we are constantly trying to create a reference point. We are constantly trying to create a sense of something happening in a certain center. This is taking place in a totally unconscious way most of the time, yes? You can say this is what we call the sense of self, the sense of being a center. And this can be sometimes perceived conceptually. We can sometimes see it, feel it, see how we do this, but there is an innate sense of self which has been created over many, many years of habit. So even young children or animals, they have this sense of center. And this sense of a center is actually the main strategy in order to avoid the truth of groundlessness, the truth of ungraspable change. Staying very close to the experience, we are actually very much in the middle of nowhere. And this is creating tremendous fear, insecurity. So there is very much a process of a strategy to try to secure our ground, to make sure that we are really, really there, that we really exist, that this is really happening, this whole thing, this life, this mind. This is really there, right? It cannot be so fluid as sometimes we see through, where there are gaps, there are moments where you feel, losing ground. I don't know anymore who I am. I don't know anymore where I am. Or suddenly the words don't make sense anymore. Language is one of our main strategy to create reference points, to create a sense of safety. All the words that we have, all the structures that we have in the society all the structure we have like in a particular culture, but also in the general society, such as, for example, time, structuring our life with concept of time, structuring our life with all kind of ways and habits. All of this, you can say, can be seen from the perspective of change as coping strategies, from the perspective of groundless, ungraspable, unceasing change. It can be seen actually as an escape. Of course, all of these things are not bad in themselves. It's like we don't really need to get rid of them to come closer to the change. But we have to see that the sense of security that they provide is an illusion, that there is no such a thing. And so we have to investigate them one after the other, and mostly by turning inwards, and to see that the process, how they happen, how they are felt, are so fine, so constantly changing, ever shifting, impossible to pinpoint, impossible to grasp. And then we start to see that, okay, all these strategies, no matter how useful they are not just not true, ultimately not true. That deep down there is something that is artificial in them, that is a kind of manipulation, a fabrication. Yeah, it is a fabrication. Useful fabrication to function in a society, useful fabrication to communicate between human beings, to be able to share, to be able to function in the most basic way, normal way, and to share our feelings. But actually, each time we look deeper, we can come to contact with this, you can say, this true basic ground where this doesn't make sense anymore. It does not make a solid sense. It only makes a relative sense, a momentary sense, a pragmatic sense. Yeah? So the path is teaching us to be more and more at ease with this groundless or ungraspable, you can say, ground state, basic state, where things are not constructed, they are not fabricated, strategized. And then at the same time to move within the world and its conventions and its words and its structures without being able to use them fully, also to enjoy them fully, but without taking them as solid, as real, without taking them so serious as they want to be taken most of the time. Yeah? So there is a sense of, you can say, there is also quite a sense of drama which can fall apart when the whole seriousness of all our structures and habits is also relaxed. So we are discovering a space where we actually, it becomes in time also, you can say, a safe space, this space where everything comes back to this unknown, to this very rich, dynamic, constant, ungraspable dimension, which has no name, but which is very much the core of our being. So we can come back to that anytime by just tuning in, yeah? By just tuning in, or taking the time, using the method to slowly come back to that. And then to see, on the other hand, how these structures and these strategies, we're calling this here, the way to interpret the change, the interpretations, are actually illusions. So in that way, we are going on the path step by step, learning to be more and more at ease with both the interpretation and the unspeakable.